So thank you so much for everyone coming into this session. I will confess I was genuinely concerned whether anyone was going to show up, because this is an Agile conference. Who wants to come and listen to HR? And actually working for such a big business, thinking about the relevance of an Agile, which I think can be viewed typically as a startup initiative, something where you have to think very quickly. How can big organisations like Unilever, with a lot of hierarchy, want to embrace this as well? So I think I'm hoping to challenge some of those myths and take you through some of the things that we are doing at Unilever, particularly in the space of HR. So what I want to talk about to start with, a little bit about me, a little bit about my background, then about Unilever, so a little bit of context about the kind of organisation we are and what we do. It was really interesting, actually. It's great to be on straight after Alan, because a lot of the things he was leading into tie in very well. The very big focus on Agile within marketing, the advent of a lot more around social media and what that's meant for us, and then how we can embrace some of that within the world of HR and employee experience as well. And then finally, I want to share a case study, because I always think these things come alive when you get to hear more about what are they actually like in practice. Let's talk about a live example. And we've actually got an interesting example around graduate recruitment, which is a really important part of what we do. We heard in the previous presentation about management, and management is dead and everyone's going to become self-managed teams. But actually, it's still a very important part of what we do. We saw the number of undergraduates learning management is increasing significantly in this country. Well, actually across the world, investment in management programs continues to be important. So I want to share with you how we've gone from 4 months to 2 weeks for our graduate recruitment. So a really nice example of where we've taken a small agile case and scaled it quickly for all of Unilever. So a little bit about me to start with. And it's quite interesting when you start to think about what are people interested about. Well, my roots were actually, they felt very agile. I grew up in a family business, although in the previous presentation, I should go back further. My mum was one of the original computer programmers working for Olivetti, and she used to read the flashing lights on the machine and the punch cards and put them in and out. So I probably had my love of technology and mathematics from a very, very early age. But my mum actually started a business, Clement's Vegetarian Restaurant. And I grew up as part of a family business, so doing everything from waitressing to washing up to finances to help setting pricing correctly. And actually it was a whole family business. So my father left his job in the city and we all moved to a small restaurant in the middle of nowhere. But it's really shaped a lot of my thinking about the fact you do need to be agile. You need to think about your approach and change it quickly when it's not working. So an important part, although I chose not to stay and take over the family business, I chose to go to university. I went to Warwick, where I studied maths and statistics. Absolutely loved it, but decided to apply that knowledge within the world of HR, and I joined Unilever. So I would love to talk about a varied working life, and when I think about the context of the fourth industrial revolution, gig economy, agile approach, everyone choosing to work for companies for a small period of time, bringing their experience and then moving on to the next new thing. I've actually been at Unilever for 21 years. But it's not lazy. It's not because actually there was nothing better to do. It was a deliberate choice. And actually, I will give you an adage that I was told when I joined, and it's stuck with me ever since. You should always look outside, because then you will never overvalue or undervalue yourself. And actually, I'm still at Unilever because it's a company I believe in, and I have had the right experiences for me at the right time. And in the same period, when my husband's had 9 different jobs at 9 different companies, I've still been at Unilever because I've been getting the right different experience for me along the way, and I've had a great career. Although I'll give you some interesting stories about where that's happened in a very uncertain way. And my family. So that's actually a picture at Extreme Robots. For anyone who loves Robot Wars, certainly that was one of my key television watching moments growing up. They now run Extreme Robots, and that tours the country. So I went there with my children a few weeks ago. It was absolutely brilliant fun. But they're a very, very important part of my life, my family. I've got 2 boys. They're now 10 and 12. And I've actually been part-time for longer than I haven't been. So I may have come up the hierarchical career ladder in Unilever and had what people would think of as quite a traditional management experience. but actually I've done it in a very agile way, working in a way that works for me and for my family. So yeah, I've been 3 days a week, I'm now 4 days a week, and they're still a very important part. In fact, one of them, the eldest at the front there, is in Falmouth with my mother-in-law, experiencing what all the delights Falmouth have to bring. So, and you'll see them at the beach party tonight. So, Unilever. Unilever is a very well-established company, and I am pleased to say, after Alan was talking about the importance of being in a company that's growing, we are a growing company. And actually, we've been employing 160,000 people in 60 countries around the world. So we're a really big business. And actually, our developing and emerging market footprint is bigger than our developed footprint. We have a lot of very big brands, and they are pushing the boundaries of what's important. When you hear about Unilever in the press, what I hope you hear, it's a company that does well by doing good. And we have a spotlight on us to show if that works, if that's possible. So actually, there's a huge responsibility on Unilever to show that actually purposeful brands like Dove, where hopefully you've seen real beauty and the importance actually of having good self-esteem. That's being extended out to our Axe and Lynx brands. And Lifebuoy is kind of the cornerstone of where we started with William Lever and Sunlight Soap and the importance of hygiene. So actually, we're doing a lot with our social mission. So yeah, lots that we want to really embrace. And we're doing a lot of work now to make sure that we bring purpose not just to our brands, but also to our employees. So again, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. It's important to say that when you think about purpose and when you think about doing things well, you have to think about, does it also impact the business? So our purposeful brands grow twice as fast as our non-purposeful brands. So it's not just the right thing to do. We're doing it because actually it grows our business. So what do I do? So I've had a career in HR actually for 20 years. And in the last 18 months, I've been running our HR analytics function. So I actually have a team of data scientists, and we pull together a lot of the big data we have across Unilever to really understand our employees, the external market, our employer brand, to decide what is it that we can help the business do. How can we augment decision-making for our managers? How can we personalise employee experience? And we do that through embedded partners in different areas. We do it through employee listening. We have a really sophisticated way of understanding our employee insights through different surveying technique, where we can get into granular detail because we can actually drill down to what's behind that mission. But when I think about who we have around the business, our business is 160,000 employees. I'm not going to, with my team of 9, affect large-scale change. What we have is a community, a network, where we have 60 people around the world who champion this cause, who are really focused on what is the data that's available to me, how can we understand more from an analytical point of view, and how can we leverage that with the business. Alan talked about the importance of understanding business if you're technical, and understanding the technical if you work in business. That's what this team do. They're a branch, a community around the world where they really pull all of those insights together for huge business benefit. I talk a lot about trying to manage the magic and the logic and marrying those together so that your gut feel really lands with impact. And actually, HR do a lot of work. We have a lot of people within HR communities who have a good understanding of psychology, organisational design, all those other great traits. But actually, if we can bring in a better understanding of data, we can have much more impact. So how do we augment decisions? First of all, we've got to understand what's happening in the business. We've got to work with our business leaders to understand the challenges. What are the hypotheses we should be testing? And then we use that with a proper scientific method. We gather the data, and we do rigorous testing on that. We have something we call next generation insights, where we will pull that hypothesis and we will quickly iterate in a 2-week cycle to understand actually, is it true, is it not, and how can we learn and then scale the impact. It's really important as well to understand the myths out there. We do quite a lot of work around myth busting. Actually, if people are making assumptions, it's important to check whether they're right or not, particularly when that's then funding decision making. So really important to scale in that way. But also, when we're going to land things with impact, we have to make sure that what we're bringing is relevant, that it's concise, and that it also makes it a compelling case. And you'll see a little bit when I talk through my case study, how we have to do that. The storytelling is important, because unless you take the organisation with you, you're just doing a really interesting academic exercise yourself. Unless people are listening to what you're saying, you're wasting your time. We do some really cool partnerships, and we fail a lot. I mean, that's absolutely the way it has to work in our team. But when we get successes, we have to scale fast, and we have to take the business with us. And with an organisation of this size, we need to be able to scale those messages out. We also need to have an agile mindset in our HR teams, and I've talked about all the great value that they bring. But also, we've got to think about the raising the floor on capability. It's great fun to raise the ceiling. It's great fun to experiment, partner with startups, do cool new toys and really see what's possible and work with some of the senior teams in Unilever. But we have to raise the floor as well. That's the way we get scale. And we've created a lot of different tools and techniques. We use Power BI, Tableau, host things on SharePoint, find interesting little apps we can put on people's phones to help them access things. So we also have one source of the truth. In an organisation of our size, we need to be able to compare on a common base. We also want to make sure that we are communicating in a way that people understand. There's a lot of people who don't have a background in data, mathematics, anything technical at all. And actually, I saw a very scary case that 93% of people trust AI, yet 73% of HR people don't know what AI is. That's a really scary statistic. I mean, that's not in Unilever, just saying. That was just a general quote I've heard. But it worries me. It really worries me. We've got to make sure that people are able to access data, understand what we're doing with AI and machine learning, and how it impacts what we do. If nothing else, we must also understand the ethical implications. I was speaking to somebody earlier who does work on GDPR. That's been fun, but actually it's so important. It's so important, because we have a responsibility. And I would say the simple approach we take to that is transparency. People have to understand what data you have on them, why you're using it, and what's in it for them. Because generally, if they can see that there's a benefit to them, why wouldn't they use it? I've got a lovely example, which is actually something that was really important to me when I came into the team. In my previous role, I was an HR business partner to our marketing organisation. Marketing, obviously, extremely important to Unilever. And we have a lot of marketeers, and traditional marketing is not something you can do alone. If you're not a digital marketeer, forget it. Everyone's crossed that Rubicon, they're on that journey. So I work within our global marketing team to build up what we call people data centres and really leverage the power of data within the marketing context. So I'd recruited a lead for that team. So when the VP of People Analytics for HR came up, I went and approached the recruiting manager and said, I've just done the recruitment for this externally. It's really tough market out there, but I can help you in your approach. And the manager said to me, well, actually, we're not going to go external, we're going to go internal. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because I've been in Unilever HR for 20 years. I can't think of anyone who has the HR understanding and the technical ability to do that job. So I said to him, well, okay, I'm a bit surprised, but actually, if you're going to do that, I'd like to be a candidate. And he said, oh, okay, well, why would that be? Oh, that's a really good start. And I said, well, actually, I have a background in maths and statistics. I have an absolute love of data and how we can use that to leverage significant change, and talked to him about some of the examples that I'd done before. He said, well, that's great, but you weren't on the long list, you weren't on the short list, and I'm making my final decision next Wednesday. Can you come for interview on Monday? I said, yeah, absolutely, no problem at all. And the very good outcome is I got the job. So the story has a happy ending. But it did make me realise, what do we leave to luck? Important decisions about talent, important decisions about who's going to guide our organisation in the future, who's going to do critical roles in the business today. You can't leave those to luck. you should really make sure that you are leveraging all of the data out there. We have more data available to us now than ever before, and it's exponential. If we look at the last 2 years, we have 9 times as much data available to us on human beings than we've had in all of the history before. That's a tremendous opportunity and responsibility, but really making the best use of that is critical. So actually my team have just developed an ability to understand the skills, experience, background of people within Unilever. And actually, if you have a job, you can type in what you need and you can see all of the background. So not just what you know from who you've interacted with or your gut feel, but also for those you haven't seen, those who are perhaps a little bit more out of your normal sphere, to actually elevate everyone to be given a fair chance for internal recruitment. So we're very excited. That's still a pilot. I am quite certain we're going to be embarrassed about the launch, so I think we'll meet the criteria. But actually, we're just trying to see what's possible. And actually, you know, early signs are good. And it is important in this world where we want to be unbiased and we want to be fair to give everyone an opportunity. So the other thing I should just quickly touch on is we are very keen to learn. So I have a team of 9, so my HR analytics team of 9 serving an organisation of 160,000 people, a massive network externally of all of our potential new recruits. But actually, it's not just 9 people. I've got my community of 60, and I've got an extended network externally of academic partners, startups, professional bodies, industry leaders, and actually it's a community of practice that we've developed which can help challenge our thinking, help us develop new techniques, iterate fast, fail fast, and if we succeed, scale fast. And yeah, lots and lots of great people. So I was joking to someone earlier today, speaking engagements, I do quite a lot, but always, actually, because I just want a free ticket to a really cool event. So that's why I'm here. So I'm hoping that you'll benefit from my presentation, but really I'm here to learn from you, to learn within the interactive sessions, to learn from the other speakers who are here. Because there's no doubt in my mind that while Unilever started on the path of Agile, we can do so much more. And I think we can learn a lot from people like yourselves in the audience. So that's really what I'm keen to do. So on to the case study, on to what really happens. And I'm going to try and make sure I leave some time for questions at the end as well. So graduate recruitment is a real cornerstone for Unilever. It's one of those sacred cows of what we do. It's absolutely critical to our business. And we do it in 50 countries around the world and at scale. So we recruit between 500 and 800 graduates a year onto our programme. And it's a really important thing to get right. So when you're going for an agile approach to try and speed this up and really challenge the way we're doing it, you have to do it with a little bit of planning. But what we've done now is moved to a whole new approach. It used to be a long-winded application form with a lot of rigor behind it, a lot of deep analysis, multiple stages of interviews and testing in a physical environment, and then finally an assessment centre. We've changed that now, where you can literally, on your phone, upload your LinkedIn profile. That's your first stage application. The second stage is you complete games, simple games on your phone to get through to the second stage. The second stage is then an interview. You'll be set a problem by video about what you need to present back. Then you record yourself at a time of your choosing, and that is what is then assessed by AI, and then checked at the moment by a recruiter. We'll see where we get to in the future. And then only actually at level 3 do you talk to a human being and actually have a discovery centre, which is a bit like the day in the life of Unilever. This is a bold approach for us. And actually, we've scaled it really quickly. So this now happens everywhere around the world. And it's been really important in challenging some way we do things. Now, I've got a video, which I'm just going to share with you. It's a little bit cheesy, so bear with me. But having sorted out all the sound now, I feel like I really do need to do it.
We've gone digital. Our new digital journey for candidates allows for a higher level of candidate self-selection and job fit, along with faster decision-making and deeper levels of candidate engagement, preparing her for the connected world. Sandy applies for a marketing position. She finds the process quick, seamless and efficient, as most of her information has been added via her LinkedIn profile. Sandy receives an SMS and email congratulating her on making it to the next round. She starts the journey by completing a profile assessment consisting of a series of 12 online games assessing cognitive, emotional and social traits. She can do them all at once or save and complete later. It's fun, relevant, reliable and mobile enabled. She likes that there is no right or wrong answer and receives immediate feedback after completion. She can also rate the process at each stage. After successfully completing and confirming Sandy is a job fit for Unilever, she's invited to a digital interview. Questions are delivered visually and verbally by a local marketing business leader. After a few practice rounds, Sandy responds to the questions as she would in a real-life case scenario and uploads the interview via her mobile device. In the interview, she can be herself at a time that suits her best. Here, recruiters use video analysis and artificial intelligence to assess her interview and effectively predict success. On passing the digital interview, Sandy is invited to a discovery centre. She attends a check-in and briefing call with a Unilever recruiter and receives a digital pack to help her prepare. She liked learning about Unilever and enjoyed the human interaction. She also loves the fact that she meets virtually with the other candidates via the Foundry Ideas platform ahead of the day. The Discovery Centre is a full day of immersion, showcasing a day in the life at Unilever. Sandy passes the final stage and is offered a job at Unilever. She receives her contract via DocuSign, signs the documents online, and is granted access to the Workday onboarding site and a chatter group that puts her in touch with all UFLPs joining globally. Sandy is amazed that in 2 weeks she went from a UFLP candidate to a Unilever employee. With the new digital recruitment process, we've moved from a 4-month plus hiring process to just 2 weeks, reducing over 50,000 hours of candidate time and recruiter screening by 75%. This tool is pioneering digital transformation, innovative, exciting and engaging. It improves the candidate experience, reduces recruiter screening time and ensures we are hiring a truly diverse set of candidates that will thrive at Unilever.
Great. So hopefully it wasn't too cheesy for you, but it just gives you a little bit of an explanation on 2 things. One is about what we're actually doing with the process. You could understand the approach we've chosen to take, but also the importance of storytelling, because clearly that is a video meant for an internal audience. And actually getting the business to understand, actually, this is a good idea. This is tested and it's something we can scale. The fact we've gone from designing something centrally to big bang out to every country with something we are incredibly proud of, and the fact it's working and working well is critical. So I talked a bit about myths earlier and the importance in my team of myths busting, something we do a newsletter on regularly. But candidates don't like assessment. Gamification is a fad and has no validity or reliability. Now, you'll have read a lot about this, and actually I think it's something we are constantly looking at, and we are constantly making sure that the games that we're using are relevant and giving us the right results, and we're assessing in the right way. Actually, what we've found is candidates really like the gamification stage. We've seen our applications go through the roof. We've had more applications than ever before. It's very easy to apply, and people are enjoying the ability to do these games and then get a report at the end to say either you're successful in Unilever, or if perhaps you've applied for a function that's not really suitable, perhaps something else would be relevant. Or if it's not Unilever, is there another company you could think about that might have the right match for you? So people have been using our games almost as career guidance. And we've had really positive feedback from unsuccessful candidates saying thank you. Quite an unexpected side benefit to the process. Because I should say, actually, it's an important part for us. All of the people who apply to work at Unilever, yes, they may or may not be successful. They may be fabulous talent that's going to move our business forward. But even if they don't join us, they're still a consumer. I still hope that they buy Ben & Jerry's ice cream and Persil and all the other products we make. So it's really important for them to have a good experience. So we do take this seriously. The second myth, assessments lead to poor quality candidates and lack of diversity. Now this is a great myth because it couldn't be more wrong. What we've seen in our approach is a much more diverse candidate pool. There is no unconscious bias through the recruitment process that you'd get through our normal recruitment process. So we've seen a real improvement in diversity, which we're very proud of. Of course, any form of AI is only as good as the programming you do. As you create that algorithm, you have to constantly review it. And we are constantly doing that. We're looking at, from our people who've been successful at Discovery Centre and they've started in Unilever, how are they doing? How are they actually performing within the business? Are the algorithms that we've created as part of our early stages with our partners still actually leading to success in the future? So we're constantly iterating back and improving that cycle. Humans recruit better than technology. I think I've covered that one off, but it's important as well to think about technology losing the human touch. I actually fundamentally disagree with that statement. And our Chief HR Officer, Lena Nair, talks a lot about being more simple, more human, and having more impact. And actually, technology and an agile methodology and mindset is a huge enabler to all of that. And what we've found, not just in graduate recruitment, but in a lot of what we do within HR at Unilever, is the more we understand about our employees, the more we can personalise our approach, the more human the interactions can be. We can make recommendations on the best kind of learning. We can make recommendations on the best career path for them. And actually, they feel like we care. They feel like we actually want to understand them and help them be the most successful version of themselves. So actually, technology doesn't make it less human. It makes so much more possible. So what do students say? Well, I'll let you read those. But generally, in the press, from our successful and unsuccessful candidates, we've actually had fantastic feedback. So I'm really proud of a lot of the achievements we've made. But we are not resting on our laurels. We're not assuming that this is done now and we can lean back and just reap the benefits. We constantly need to change. A very agile approach. For sure, this will change. When you look back in 3 months, this is going to be different again. And finally, I talked about all the countries. We're live now in 53 countries. Massive. I mean, our applications, as I've said, have just gone through the roof. And the amount of positive feedback we get has also increased significantly. I've talked about diversity increasing as well. We don't talk so much about the cost, but we have saved a lot of money. You can imagine the manual recruitment time versus using technology. The biggest advantage is 4 months to 2 weeks. Can you imagine that great talent out there at university campus? They sort of enter the sort of whole recruitment process step and from this company to this company. And actually, if we take too long to come back and make them a job offer, they'll be working for someone else. So actually, speed is important. Making sure we're leveraging all of our technology to make sure we're making offers at the right time in the right place. I think just before I move on to questions, I just want to share a few more thoughts. Because within HR, a lot of what we do is having to establish how we can have impact. We need to establish a network. We need to understand the business. We need to see where we can add the most value. We can understand those points, critical points, where we can add some benefit. Then we can gather the data and bring the science. That's when we have to really push those arguments we want to make, those insights we want to bring, and listen to the responses, build the stories, take the business with us. Absolutely critical. So, questions. I've got a few more things I'll share if there aren't loads of questions, but I'm keen. I'm sure everyone's come into this room with a certain expectation of what they're going to hear. I hope I've met some of them, but if there's any other questions you've got about business, HR, yeah.
So it looks like you've created something quite interesting from a graduate recruitment perspective. I can see how that works quite well. Have you got any that same sort of methodology for more experienced roles? How do you think that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started, although it's big scale and high risk, we've started where we feel that the target audience will be most receptive. If I put, it's quite an English way of putting, we think younger people are more open to this. But actually we have started with our mid-career recruits as well. So the people we bring in, 10, 15, 20 years experience, absolutely. We've started to test that methodology. We've also started to test it on internal recruitment, where you have an internal job role and you have a very large number of applicants. You can't interview everyone, yet you want to feel, particularly with internal candidates, that you're giving everyone a chance. So by using the AI approach to interviewing, you can set a challenge, set a business problem, and use our partners to actually do some of that analysis for us. So everyone's had an opportunity to apply, and you can look through that approach as well. So yes, we're using it internally and externally. We haven't scaled it to this extent yet, not in every country. Yeah.
I think that was very interesting. I had a kind of related question to the previous one, which is, especially when you move up and look at more senior candidates or more senior people within your business, how do you define success for them? Because for a graduate, they're largely interchangeable. They're assessed on the more basic skills, not the more complicated stuff, not to do with how they're working in the business, because they haven't started doing that yet. But how do you go about defining that process and defining success at the higher and more tricky levels?
Yeah, it's a great question, and actually I'll give you a slightly different answer, but I will come back. We actually had an example. I was talking about this process to our Unilever executive, and he said, yeah, a few other companies have started to play around with this as well, and I was helping my daughter have a go at doing this, and then she failed the process. And I was like, yeah, that's because what we were recruiting for 20 years ago when you came in and what you do now isn't what we're recruiting for now with our graduates who are going to come in and learn. Having said that, though, there are some things that are the same. And actually, what we're finding is the mindset, the approach, pioneering, curious, challenging, having an agile mindset is so critical, because a lot of the skills we can teach them. We can actually plug them in, and quite frankly, we have to unlearn and relearn more now than ever before. So having, those core skills is becoming less and less relevant. And actually the attitude, the approach, the mindset, the ability to take on and absorb new things, the ability to learn fast, actually is increasingly important. We heard this morning about, that approach to decision making, and whether you're risk averse, whether you're trying to avoid failure or embrace and take risks with success. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking for. Obviously, I can't give you the formula for how we look for senior management at Unilever, but those are the kinds of areas we look at, and we do take that incredibly seriously. Yep.
So as actualists, we value people and interactions over processes and tools. I do love what you've done, and I see how that is valuing people and interactions. How are you going to keep that in check as you go forward, as this grows and becomes part of your systems and your processes?
Not to more broadly, I guess you're asking, yeah. So I think, this is why it's such an exciting time to be in HR right now. And it's an exciting time to be in HR with the background that I've got, because actually I can bring more of the mathematical, statistical rigor to the way we do things. So for me, one of the most important things I haven't actually talked about yet, but is workforce planning, strategic workforce planning. Understanding what the future looks like and preparing for it now. How do we think in a more agile way about how we resource our teams? How do we have a genuine flow to work? How do we get the best talent focusing on the right activities? Those are huge questions, none of which I can answer well, but they are the questions we're asking ourselves now. And we have really great pilots in that space already. In an organisation the size of Unilever, it's really important to start small and then scale fast, because actually you'll never boil the ocean. So we've got lots and lots of different pilots currently working in that space, but we are trying to bring in more tools, techniques to help people embrace that at scale. Yeah.
We talked about analytics using Power BI, Tableau, and
Yeah.
other tools, and I think you had just a snapshot of your leadership team dashboard.
Yes.
Can you tell us anything about what those KPIs?
Sure. And actually, when I was starting to prepare this presentation, I was thinking about the power of Agile and what that means for me in Unilever. And I was also looking at what's the antithesis of Agile. And I looked it up, and it was things like dull, clumsy, and I thought, oh, that feels a little bit scary. But actually, it's rigor as well. So Agile versus rigor. There are some things where rigor is important still. And I wouldn't say that I've fully embraced Agile in everything I do. When I'm counting the number of people who work for Unilever, I have rigor. When I'm making sure my payroll works, I have rigor. But there are other areas where I can embrace the new. So when you see the leadership dashboard, what you'll find on there is things from headcount, attrition, cost of organisation, expats, global mobility, all of those different areas. We look a lot at gender diversity, so there's lots of dashboards to help people understand that in more depth. We also have a huge amount around cost of organisation and those kinds of areas as well. But what we're starting to do now is launch more around relevant metrics, about tools like the recruitment one that I was talking about for internal recruitment, just scaling small-scale examples. But yeah, those are the kinds of things. And to be honest, if somebody comes to us and says, I have a need, I want to interrogate this question, we can create a quick Power BI dashboard and then make it available to everyone. So if people have a similar question, they can apply it to their own data set. Yeah.
Does these software deal with perhaps missed candidates? So maybe they failed the first stage and maybe there's something wrong with the algorithm that's working out.
It's a great question. Yeah, a great question, and one we ask ourselves all the time. We heard a bit this morning about, what are the misses? How do you know whether you're working effectively? And actually, we deliberately put a number of misses in through our discovery centre. So on a randomised sample, and we will deliberately check exactly that question, because we never make the assumption that our algorithms are perfect. So we constantly want to test and challenge. Actually, if we do put lower scores through, lower test results through, how do they succeed at the Discovery Centre? We don't give them jobs, but we do put them through our final assessment stage. Yeah. How am I doing on time? Got a few more minutes. Okay. Any other? Yeah.
So before you implement some new way of assessing candidates, how long do you wait kind of during the pilot phase? Like, do you hire a few people through it, then assess their performance on the job, and then if that's satisfactory and all the other metrics you might have are satisfactory, then implement it? Or do you try and, get there quickly, as you said, what was it? Fail fast, iterate fast, scale fast.
Yeah, so because we had such a burning platform to push through, we wanted to move really fast with this one. So we created the algorithms and we put our existing graduates through it to see how they would perform. So we used our current population as guinea pigs to see how they performed, what their results looked like, to actually see if we'd done this a year ago, would we have got similar results? And actually, particularly looking at those graduates who have been most successful, actually what have we seen? So we did it that way, yeah.
I thought it occurred to me, in terms of failing fast and learning quickly, have you done anything to perhaps increase the aggressiveness with which people they don't see out their notice period perhaps when they join? Like trying to establish whether the person wants working out once they join rather than be absolutely certain they can be process.
I mean, that's a great question. So the quick answer is we haven't, but I like the idea. And I think we're doing a lot more crowdsourcing, scoping out ideas, collaborating with partners. So you could argue actually what we're probably doing in that environment is also talent spotting and finding out actually we're partnering with this person, can we bring them in? We partner a lot with academic institutes as well to try and pull things, but that's more within my analytics field. If you look at the total Unilever population, I think that's a really cool idea. Not something we've done yet though, but thank you for the idea that I will now steal with pride. So great. Thank you. I think I'm about at time. Am I all right?
5 minutes left.
Oh, I've still got 5 minutes. Wow. I thought I was 40 minutes, 45. Yeah.
Was there any major resistance you had to work through the process? Is there people going, no, this is not how we want to go?
I think you always get people who have concerns, particularly with such an important process for us as this. I mean, what we do across the board. You know, you're always going to meet some resistance. And I think that is why the storytelling is so important. So actually you help people understand what's the case for change. Why can we not stick with our 4-month recruitment process that we have today? And what are the opportunities that we're missing? And actually paint the journey, paint the impact, and really sell them the benefit. And it is important because you run a real risk if you don't do that stage in the process. You'll be undermined in the end in terms of actually taking everyone with you. And then you're just wasting your time. Unless you get great adoption, you're wasting your time. So really important to do. Yeah.
Is there like an internal bias? If an internal and external potential candidate goes for a job, would you then have a referral and then that will be included in the system?
It's a really interesting question. We obviously do a lot of recruitment that has both internal and external candidates. In the current process, that's done by line manager interview and a lot of our traditional methods. The beauty of using things like the AI interview, setting the problem solving, you can get a clear comparison. Having said that though, I'd almost be sad to miss the value of the internal reference because somebody's worked with that person for years. Wouldn't you want their opinion? Wouldn't you value that as well? So I think that's something to think about for the future. But I think it's a great challenge, and I really like the agile approach of trying to operate when things aren't clear, operate in uncertainty, take the bits that you do know, make educated guesses on the things you don't know, and then come to an informed gut feel decision. So I think that's really where we just need to make sure we're equipping people. And I think we talk a lot about augmenting decision making. Sorry, go on.
It's all right, I'm sorry for interrupting. Would you take an internal referral through the same process of going through the AI-based assessment approach?
So all of the example I've talked through today is our graduate recruitment. So they're all external hires, and we wouldn't put our internal candidates through that. I mean, I guess there'd be no reason why we couldn't, but this is normally your first entry into work. So most people who enter our graduate recruitment process wouldn't have worked for Unilever before. I think the question before about, could we consider external, internal candidates in the same way for our mid-career recruits, for our more senior positions? We don't do it now, but I think it's certainly something we could explore. But I think that is the question of how do you have a level playing field and a common assessment, but not miss the richness of the internal recommendation behind it. I think that's the conundrum, the balance that we'd have to seek. So I think it's an interesting challenge, though. Lots of good food for thought. Oh my goodness. It's always good to be challenged in my thinking. Very good. Yeah.
Did you build a lot of the tooling that you put into that program, or is it? So I saw a lot of names, things like Workday and Scimetrics. Is it just an aggregation of existing stuff?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. So Workday is our HR information system. So, I mean, every company has to work with, your core HR system. We actually work with a lot of external partners in this. So Pymetrics do our gamification, HireView do our AI interviewing. So, and that's well established and in the press, so no problem sharing that. But I think it's a constant challenge for my team about, is it make versus buy? And I think the question earlier about how quickly you can actually do things yourself. I've got some fantastic data scientists in my team that can do things quite quickly. And they say, actually, don't engage with an external partner. I can do this. Give me 2 weeks, I'll have it done. And actually, that's what we're seeing. So there's always the challenge of make versus buy. Do I want to invest 2 weeks of my team's time versus do I want to partner with an external? So yeah, it's always a good question. Wonderful. I think I'm probably up on time, but thank you for your questions because that's been really helpful. Thank you.